Hey everybody, how are you doing today? I thought I would do a granny square tutorial, and this is what I came up with for my first one. And so I decided on this one just because I kind of liked the shape of it not being square. But I wanted to point out that being a granny square, you can of course keep going and make it bigger, or you don't have to do this many rounds. You could do it only 3 rounds and with a border, and then maybe you could use it as a coaster, or you could keep going and use it as a tablecloth if you wanted to keep going. You could use it any way you liked, and I used acrylic yarn, but of course if you're going to use for a hot purpose, then it is always recommended that you use cotton. What I did was I put a border of single crochet, and to emphasize the corners I put 3 in the corners, and I put the needle here just to note to you that I did not do 3. I must have forgotten to do 3 singles, and you can see how it's definitely rounded here versus here. You can distinctly see the corners with the 3 single crochets. So it's really important that when we get to the border that you put in those 3 single crochets so that you can have a nice shape to it, and it not, unless you want it more rounded, then of course you would only do the one and you would have the round shape. So let's go ahead and get started. So what I used for my project was 3 different color yarns. I used, in the green shade, I used a hunter green, a medium, and then like a sage green. You could do it one color, you could do variegated yarn, you could do anything that matches the room that you're going to be putting it in. Browns, pinks, reds, yellows, whatever you like. But this is just what I chose. I thought it would be good for the camera. And then for supplies, what you'll need is your crochet hook. I used a 4.25. It's a G hook. This gives you, let's see if I can get a measurement for you. So I did 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds and then a border. And at 4 rounds with the 4.25 G hook, corner to corner is 7 inches. Then that's with a single crochet border. Without the border, it's 6 inches. So that gives you an idea of about, how long. But I liked the smaller hook just because the stitches are a little tighter. So that's up to you. You can go down a hook size or up a hook size depending on the yarn that you use and the size stitch you'd like. And again, you could use 3 different colors. You could put every round a different color, however you want. Be creative with it. This is your project, and I hope you enjoy it. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I wanted to bring to your attention that these may look like double crochets, but they're actually clusters of 3. So I'll go ahead and show you how to do that, but we're going to begin with a magic circle. So it's however you make a magic circle, and then a beginning cluster, meaning it's the first cluster of your round. You're going to chain 3 because that would be the height of your double crochet. You're going to yarn over, insert into the stitch or the space, and pull up a loop. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops. You have 2 loops remaining. Yarn over, insert your hook into the appropriate stitch or space, pull up a loop. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops. You have 3 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over and pull through all 3. So that's a double crochet cluster, okay? And we're going to separate every cluster with a chain 3. So chain 3, and we're going to now we're at the point of we have the height, so we don't have to do the chain 3, so we go right into the double crochet. So you yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, then yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, and then you're going to pull through all the loops. Oops, maybe not. There we go. All right, and then you're going to chain 3. And so you're going to do that so that you have 5 clusters. 1, 2, 3, 4, oh, I'm sorry, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 clusters. And then you're going to join, after you do your 6th cluster, you're going to chain 3 and join it to the first cluster. Now, one thing you may want to do, depending on how well you can see your stitching, is when you do the chain 3, sometimes when you come around, it's hard to see where you're going to do your join. So before you get too far into it, you may want to put a stitch marker into that 3rd chain so you know exactly where to insert your insert your hook. So go ahead and complete round 1, and then I will meet you back right before we're ready to join. Okay, so let's end round 1 together. So I've done my 6 clusters and I've chained 3. So you can go ahead and pull closed and then slip stitch into that 3rd chain. Oops. I just like to pull this tight. Now for this particular project, instead of weaving my tail in, I'm actually going to knot it and sew it in. Just because this is probably going to be a project that gets washed, so I want to make sure it's really tight and secure. Okay, so at this point you can change out your color or continue going. I did 2 rounds with 3 different colors, so you need to start in a chain space. So what I do is I slip stitch across my cluster. Okay, so now I'm in my chain space, and this is the first cluster of this round, so I'm going to chain 3, and I'm going to put 2 clusters in every chain space. Oops, I don't know what I'm doing. Hold on. Got lost there for a second. Okay, so that's my 3. All right. And then you're going to chain 3. And then because you are putting 2 clusters in this one chain space, you may have to slide that cluster over just a smidge to make some room. I always forget to make sure my hands are in the view of the camera. I guess that's better. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. I'm still new at this video making. Okay, and then chain 3. And then you're going to jump over to the next chain space, and you're going to just repeat it all the way around. So you're going to put 2 clusters in every chain space. So yarn over and insert. Pull up a loop. Okay. Keep doing that, and then we'll meet you at the end. And then don't forget, you're going to be closing the same way into that chain 3 space, the 3rd chain of the chain 3 space. I'll meet you back at the end of round 2. Okay, so this is the end of round 2. This is what it should be looking like. And we're going to get ready to start round 3. Now, for round 3, I changed my color. Okay, so I'll show you how I did that. So because you have to start in a chain space, an open space, and I don't want to slip stitch with the other color, I'm going to slip stitch with this sage color. So I'm going to get over here into this chain space. Okay, so now I'm there. And then I'm just going to cut a length just long enough that I can tie it when I join my second color in here. So I'm going to kind of hold that tight. And now remember, we're starting the next round. So I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you what the next round is. So now it kind of gets where you have to start really watching, because in every other chain space we're going to do 2, then 1, then 2, then 1. So your 2s, this is your corner. So you're building your corners. So it's 2, 1, 2, 1 all the way around. So let's do 1 or 2 so that we can do it together. So I'm going to add my second color, and you may not be changing colors. You may just keep yours the same, which is fine. But because we're starting a new cluster, we're going to chain 3. So that's 2 and 3. And then we're going to do our first cluster. Make sure I'm in the camera. I always forget to do that. Chain 3. And then we're going to start with our 2. So we're going to go ahead and put our second cluster in there. Okay, so that's our 2 clusters. Just making sure just making sure I did it right. All right, and then we're going to chain 3. So now that's our 2, and then our next chain space, we're going to do 1 cluster. I'm sorry. Oh, there's my dog. Somebody must be walking in the street. All right. Okay, and then our next open space, we're going to do 2 clusters, and then 1, 2, 1. So you go ahead and finish that round, and I'll meet you at the end. Okay, so that was the end of round 3, and you should be at 18. So it should be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Now again, I'm going to start round 4, so we're going to continue to build. So every time you have 2, you're going to put 2 in there again. So now we're going to slip stitch over, and so this is the center of the 2. So we're going to put 2, then 1, 1, 2, because this is the cluster, 2 clusters together, 1, 1, put 2 clusters together, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, and go all the way around. And of course, remember, you have to slip stitch into that first cluster. So once you get that slip stitch in there, and you're in that chain space, now remember, you're going to chain 3 to get your height, and then you're going to start that first cluster. And then chain 3. You're going to go right back in there, slide that over if you need to. Go right back in there. Do your second cluster. Chain 3. So now I'm going to do 1 cluster, 1 cluster, 2 clusters, and I'm going to do that all the way around. So you go ahead and do that, and I will catch up with you at the end of round 4. Okay, so I hope yours is looking similar to mine, which it may look a little weird if you have it positioned you know, turned in the wrong spot. You're thinking, oh, this isn't right. But remember, wherever the 2s are, these are your points, your corners. So it will have that kind of a weird shape to it. Now I'm going to stop increasing at this point, but like I said, you could continue. The pattern is pretty much, you're just going to put your double cluster in the corners and then one across. So if you went ahead to the next round, you would slip stitch into the opening, and this is a double cluster, so you would put 2, 1, 1, 1. This is a double cluster, so then it would be 2. So every time you would increase a row, you would be adding an extra single cluster, but you will always have your 2, 4, 6 points. Okay, so you'll always have 6 points, and then everything in between are your single clusters. Okay, so I'm going to now end mine. I don't like the way this is as a finish, so I wanted to do a row of single crochet. So remember, when you're going to slip stitch into that, because you want to, I just liked to keep it similar in the sense that I started in an opening. So you're going to slip stitch into the opening or the chain space. Okay, and then cut your thread, and it only has to be long enough to tie, so it doesn't have to be super long. And then you're going to get whatever you're going to use as your border, and you could do any border you wanted. If you wanted to do the crab, which is the reverse single crochet, you could do that. That's fine, whatever you wanted. So I just hooked on there to slip stitch in there, and then I'm going to put my single crochet. Now this is where I made my mistake here in the beginning, because this is actually your point. So you should be starting with 3 single crochets into this first one, because this is your corner, and your corners get 3 single crochets. And that's why I messed up on that one. So I'm going to put 3 singles, and then I'm going to put 1 single crochet in those 2 stitches. And then in my chain spaces, I'm only going to put 1 unless it's a corner. I'm putting 2 in my cluster, and then this is just a side chain space, so I'm just putting 1. I'm going to go all the way across. Okay, now this is a corner. This is 2 clusters together. So after I'm going to crochet through the cluster first. I don't like the way that looks. Okay. First crochet through the cluster. Now I'm in that opening of the chain space. So now I'm going to put 3 single crochets. Okay, and then I'm going to continue along the side here. All right, so you go ahead and finish yours, and oh, that's what the problem is. You finish yours, and we will meet up at the end of our border. Okay, so I went ahead and went all the way around, and then I wasn't sure if I mentioned in the beginning just to slip stitch into that first single crochet to tie it off, and then of course cut your yarn and then fasten off. And then what I always like to mention is when you're fastening and you're tying off your threads, remember the rule of 3. You know, when you're sewing in the ends, usually they tell you to go in 3 directions, and I always knot in 3 too. It does make a harder bump, so when I sew in my tail, I really try to pull that knot in so that it kind of hides the knot a little bit. But it's pretty much done. It's hard to see with all those tails hanging out, but you can see when it's sitting like this the points, and you can see it's much better than this one where I have that rounded edge. It's much better now. So go ahead and work your granny square, and hopefully it'll be just perfect for you. And like I said, you can cut it off smaller and make it a coaster, or keep going and make it a placemat. You can do lots of different things with granny squares. You can make clothes and shawls and blankets and purses. It's almost endless what you can do with the granny square. So if you find a granny square you really like, that's the main thing. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, and if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching.